Hello, and welcome to Sunday Mornings at MABA.
Good morning, everyone. Not everyone knows me. My name is Kongke. I'm new here at MABA, and I am Russian. Where's the end? Where's the limit of violence, of darkness that is so deeply rooted in us, in human beings? Since the end of World War II till now, there were only 26 days without war on this planet. Only 26 days. My heart goes to those who suffer right now, to those who have to defend their homeland, who have been tortured, wounded, or abused, who left their homes and belongings. My heart goes to those who are forced to fight in another country, whose heart is overcome with self-righteousness, hatred, or delusion. I pray for peace. The topic of today's talk is Dhamma in difficult times. What an interesting topic. When we were discussing it before, no one knew how timed this topic would be. Now is the time when Dhamma is so needed. It is very easy to get caught up in the emotions, in the righteous anger, in the feeling of powerlessness, when it seems like the world around us is just falling apart. Now it is the time to have a good foundation, a spiritual base that should support us in difficult times. In order to be functional in these difficult times, we have to get rid of illusions. When we see a tragedy that is happening now, we must remember Buddha's words that there is no beginning that we can find of the pain. What is happening now is the result of something that happened before. And it is also will be the cause of what is about to happen in the future. The beginning can't be pointed out from the outside. When was the first fight that happened between humans? But what can be pointed out is the inner beginning of actions right now. The result that we experience right now can be turned into cause. And this is the right, real fight that we must fight. Before anything can be done on the outside, we have to be very honest with our own selves. How do we deal with even slight discomfort and stress? Are we able to transform it into a spiritual guidance that can help us to sow a seed of goodness in ourselves that later can grow and be spread around to help others? Here's the list of some of the examples of what an untrained mind tends to do when met with obstacles. Talking about me, the fact that this world is changing and we're entering not a very peaceful stage of this earth period was obvious to me a long time ago. And honestly, I did not expect to have a calm and pleasant day when I was preparing to come to America. After I arrived, every time I would be feeling happy or enjoy the moment, I would tell myself, appreciate it. Soon, who knows, maybe you would not have a good reason to be happy again. I tried to prepare myself to any kind of bad outcomes, but what actually happened, well, in my worst dreams, I could not imagine this. And after my home country, Russia, invaded Ukraine, I was put in a position where I had to once again figure out how to exist. How do I keep smiling and allowing myself being peaceful when I'm aware of suffering that is caused in the name of all Russians right now? We have to understand that it's not just a war between Russia and Ukraine. This is a way much bigger event, and it will affect the whole world in the near future. So no more, at least for me, no more I'll start practice tomorrow. Now is the time. So I'm very grateful for this opportunity to create this talk and this PowerPoint because it helped me to make sure I have all the necessary steps to do better. If we are lucky enough to be born in a caring family, then since childhood, we're brought up with very interesting set of notions that often contradicts the reality. No parent would wish to teach a child that there is suffering in this world, that people are dying just right now in this moment. Someone is tortured, someone is bullied, someone's abused, someone is hungry, someone is lost, someone without help and hope. I have friends in Russia who, the parents, reviewing cartoons for their child, like Lion King. They know, oh, the father will die there. So I don't want to let my kids see that because they will get upset. They want to hide the fact of death from their kids. We are raised to believe that correct way is when bad things do not exist. We're supposed to always feel good, free, being successful, and happy in all aspects of life. And if it's not happening, then we try to change it. And if it doesn't help, we have two options. If it's my suffering, then I need to block it by distracting, by drinking, by socializing, anything. Or if it's happening outside, we try to ignore it as much as possible. We are not taught the nature of this world, which means that we are unaware, ignorant. First Buddha's sermon after his enlightenment, where he told us about Four Noble Truths, supposed to dispel our ignorance. It's not easy to understand even first truth, let alone other three. In this talk, the emphasis would be only on the first one mostly, because it seems like even though we know about suffering, that is there somewhere, but at the same time, we don't want to know about it. We don't want to witness it. We don't want to experience it. We don't want to deal with it. I was born sensitive enough to suffering, but I was still very, very ignorant about it. Even though my life didn't consist of hardship, I struggled with relating to this human life. Since I was 13, I was depressed, suicidal, and I would self-harm. Since early teenage years, I often ask myself, why do people live if they're going to die anyway? What is the point of trying to achieve something, to do something, if all that is just going to be lost at the moment of death? Why being happy if there's so much pain in the world? That's why I studied psychology in university, and humankind know quite a lot about stress and mechanisms of dealing with stress, the unproductive ones and productive ones. Productive ones, we call them coping mechanisms or coping strategies. We're not going to discuss them now because there's a lot of information online about it. Mostly it even became a common sense already, but it doesn't mean that we actually follow it, but at least we heard about it and we expect ourselves to do it or others. After I finished my degree in psychology, I was left very unsatisfied with the knowledge and skills that I had. I was sure that something is wrong from the very beginning. It felt like the information that I had was always one step behind the suffering. So I always had to catch up. The suffering exists, and then I need to do something about it. I could try to cut off the head of Hydra, but two new ones would grow. So I struggled a lot to find a way to end suffering once and for all. And I did not just try one thing or two things. I would try many different things and leave unsatisfied. I tried philosophical systems and religions, psychics and esoterical practices, lots of things. I was a friend and I worked with a lot of psychologists. I saw them out of sessions. I was teaching Chinese Kung Fu and I was quite successful in it. I won championships. My students won championships in Russia and Europe. I was invited to teach in different cities and different countries. So I saw many other great masters. And I'm not telling you to tell that I was good. Quite opposite. I was really bad. I was in a bad and dark place, not only mentally, but I really knew that I didn't understand and achieve and realize anything. And I saw a lot of teachers and respected leaders, and well, I felt hopeless. So when Master Ju suggested me to become a nun, without hesitation, I let go of everything. I let go in hopes that finally, now, I will be able to fully understand. Now I'm not playing in front of the door. Now I finally open the door and I can step in, and I'm going to be serious about my practice, and I will be able to realize the truth about how to overcome the suffering, find a meaning in all this mess that is going around. So I found my hope. Surprisingly, after becoming a nun, our world didn't change, didn't turn into heaven. No, nothing actually changed. But there now was this pressure of expectation that I need to understand, I need to overcome, I need to realize those expectations that come from within, from myself, and from outside also. I worked hard, but nothing really seemed to work until one day I expressed my sentiments to a Taiwanese nun named Wan Shi. I told her that this world is so cruel, that there's so much pain that I don't know how to live in here. And she told me, yes, you're right, but you need to open your heart to it. Interestingly, open your heart, Kaixin, in Chinese means to be happy. I was very surprised. What do you mean, open your heart? You mean I don't have to fight with it? I don't have to try to change it? I don't have to disagree? Don't run away, don't try to distract myself, but open my heart, stay with it. Be brave enough to feel how it feels. It was actually physically painful, I must admit. Even if I tried, I remember that day, like, how does it feel to actually feel pain? I tried to open my chest, my heart to it, and it was physically painful. That was the first day that I actually learned something about First Noble Truth. So being a novice nun, I had a lot of unsatisfactory stresses and sufferings. And because I was mostly cut off from the things that I would use before in my life to comfort myself or to distract myself, now it was easier to me to observe where my mind tried to find comfort in, where there's a go-to. I would notice how my mind creates different constructions to block, to avoid, to overcome suffering. How desperately my mind was trying to have something solid to rely on, to grab on. If my mind tries to rely on something artificial so hard, then what is the right thing to rely on? I deeply contemplated, what does it mean to take refuge? Is it a mere ritual that we, as those who weren't raised as a Buddhist, take to become a Buddhist? I heard that opinion. Or is it a faithful prayer that you rely on when something goes wrong? I heard that opinion too. I remember in Thailand, one monk tell us, well, if you're on the plane and you're in turbulence, start saying, I take refuge in Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, and it will calm you down. So being a monastic, it equipped me with less obstacles and clear up my vision a bit to be able to see that what we are trying to use as a support are of the nature that is called conditioned nature, which means those things come and go, they change. They never last and change. It's like trying to grab a dried branch to climb. It may look sturdy, but once you grab it, it falls apart in your hand. According to Buddha, the only place for refuge is 3 refuges, 3 treasures. So what does it mean? How a simple formula. Buddham saranam gacchami, Dhammam saranam gacchami, Sangham saranam gacchami. or in Chinese, 鬼佛,鬼法,鬼僧, how that can help and solve any kind of problem. So let's examine what does it mean to take refuge in the Buddha. During hard times, when we are struggling, are we trying to rely on a human being that passed away more than 2,500 years ago and expect that just that action somehow will help us? It sounds really familiar, similar to the other practices, other religions. And for some reason, I have a feeling that Buddha himself wouldn't approve of that. And his message before death is clearly pointing to that. So let us take a closer look at how we call our main figure of our religion. We usually don't call him by his name. His name is Siddhartha Gautama, but we call him Buddha. Literally, the word Buddha comes from the stem bodhati, which means to wake up, to rise up. So instead of relying on some deceased human being, we should consider taking refuge in waking up or awakening. And it is a good idea to investigate 3 questions. Awakening from what, to what, and what is it to be awakened? And you can see from what we try to wake up from delusion, wake up to the reality, and waking up is dispelling the wrong view and acquiring the right view. What is the right view? It is the knowledge of 4 noble truths. First noble truth tells us about the existence of suffering. We are indeed trying everything to block ourselves from experiencing suffering, but it is unavoidable. A Dhamma practitioner reminds himself or herself on a daily basis that he or she will die. All people that he loves and cares about will die. All that is dear and pleasant to him will eventually be lost, gone, broken, stolen, destroyed. Look around. Everything around you will be gone. This very object, we like to buy new things when they're shiny, when they're new, we like to use them. But when they're old, we don't want to have it. Throw away. But in this thing, the seed of destruction of death is already there. This very body is already in the process of dying. Everyone around me, my parents, my relatives, my siblings are gonna die. Do we like to remind ourselves about that? I don't know about American society, but in Russia it's very superstitious. People don't want to hear about it. If they hear about it, they knock on the wood. They shush you. Say, oh, please don't say, otherwise something bad will happen. So the question is, why would Buddha want to start his teaching from the very first thing, such dark perspective? Because this is the reality. We cannot avoid death, illness, and destruction. And if we try to create the house, to build the house of our practice on a peace and happiness without the base of suffering, then the stress will come, the tornado will blow our happiness and peace very easily if we don't have a basis of understanding the suffering. So taking refuge to the Buddha in waking up, is in waking up, is in being aware, in knowing the reality. In a moment of suffering, first thing that we would want to do before trying to overcome the suffering with various ways, just acknowledge. Oh, this is suffering. Not why he's doing that, why that happened. How could that happen in 21st century? Not that, just, oh, this is suffering. I see. Suffering is like this. Breathe with it. Feel it. How does your breathing feel? How does your body feel? How do your feeling feel? How your mind feels? I am lucky enough, in terms of Dhamma, My country right now is in very bad state. The free moment that I have, where does my mind go? To the suffering of Ukrainian people, to those who are killed, raped, enslaved, tortured, abused, bullied, to the Russians who are prisoners in their own country. Most of them are oppressed by the government and punished by Western sanctions at the same time. And the worst is only about to come. So I have to practice. I have to practice to stay sane. But if you're not lucky enough to have a lot of suffering, then come to the monastery. Live here long enough to meet with stress. Can you skillfully deal with it? It is not easy. Next one, taking refuge in Dhamma. Usually, what do we think about having refuge in Dhamma? Well, I'm already studying Buddhism for a long time. I participated in ceremony of taking refuge. Then clearly my refuge is in Dhamma, right? No. Because when slight discomfort comes, and we're getting sad, depressed, irritated, angry, disappointed, lost, all that points out that we don't have a refuge. The actions of an untrained person is based on creating something, on acting in mind, speech and body, the action. We're looking for any possible opportunity to rely on conditioned things, created things for our mind at first and then for the body and speech. Instead of taking refuge in something uncreated, unconditioned, which is nirvana. But before we can realize what is cessation, what is nirvana, we need to make a smooth transition and understand what is condition. Instead of running away from difficulties, we're going into them. Contrary to what feels natural, we need to go right into it. We dive into that ocean of unpleasant feelings, unpleasant sensations. And we investigate them through the light of Dhamma. Created, what is created? Created is our sense of self. It is created and conditioned and concocted by 5 aggregates: body, feeling, perception, volition, and consciousness, that we usually call self or mind. And when those aggregates go through a natural cycle of changes according to causes and conditions, it makes us suffer. So we have to take whatever popped up in our mind and need to investigate it through anicca, dukkha, and anatta, through impermanent, suffering, and non-self. We can start from something very simple, like bodily discomfort during meditation. For example, I feel pain in my back. If I would be mindful enough, I can direct my attention to the pain, and I would notice that at some point there is pain, but next moment my mind goes away and it doesn't feel the pain anymore. One moment the pain is there, I try to adjust, and then the pain shifts. And then I adjust that, and then pain shifts again. I go to a chiropractor, massager, they will fix that, something else will help. So we see that our body is always impermanent. And what is impermanent creates suffering because we cannot adjust. If we know, okay, this is in pain, I fix it and everything's gonna be good. But it keeps changing. So change creates suffering. And what is suffering cannot be myself. Because if it's my body, I will tell him, don't feel pain, don't be painful, and it will listen to me. But it's not. So it is not my body. It's just a condition that I'm given. Same goes with feelings, with perception, with volition, and hardest of all consciousness. We don't really notice sometimes that it's impermanent, that it's suffering, that it's not self. Who's thinking? Of course I'm thinking. Who has a will to do something? I want to do this. Of course that's me. So we have to try to investigate those things through impermanent suffering and non-self. By realizing those three characteristics in regards to all five aggregates, we may understand that there is nothing wrong with suffering itself. If we are left alone on the streets, cold, without shelter, food, no one cares about us, it is quite natural to feel sad, depressed. There is nothing wrong in feelings, being irritated or angry. Our emotions do not rise because we want to experience them. They rise up because of the conditions, as a result of conditions. Acting on them is different. We don't want to act on emotions in Dharma practice. But when they arise, we don't fight with them. But when you don't look out and search outside, who is there to blame? Who is responsible for your unpleasant feelings? And instead, you turn your attention inside. And you be mindful of it, avoiding two extremes, fighting with emotions, feelings, or bad, unpleasant sensations, and avoiding another option, which is indulging it. You can, get sucked into it and allow yourself to dwell on it too much. No, instead, if you just observe it, mindfully observe it, and then you would be able to notice three things. That they arise, that they continue, and then they cease. Without making any action, just by observing, you may witness the cessation, the third noble truth. Most of the time, we're not aware of cessation. We know when anger comes, I don't want to be angry. We know when sadness comes, I don't like to be sad. But we never are aware when it goes away. One day, the same teacher, the Wan Fa Shi, told me, you have to be brave enough to be able to see your feelings. And I had to deal with a lot of anger in Taiwan, but I was so unhappy that I was angry. I have to practice well. Why am I angry with another nun who is actually taking care of me, who's trying to be helpful? And she told me, just be brave to see your anger. And one day I collected all my courage and I felt, okay, now I have anger. Let me look at it. Anger. And it gone. I was like, oh, but how do I look at anger? It's not there. And then I thought, oh, confusion. Let me see the confusion. I tried to look confusion, and it was gone. I was so surprised, nothing's there. A feelings is just the bubbles on the water. They're not there if you're not trying to do with them anything. They're just gone. Nothing is there. The next one, taking refuge in Sangha. Sangha provides us with a connection between this realization of awakened one and us. Those people kept this knowledge. They practiced well. And now, by virtue of their kindness and hard work, we can learn it. Being in the community of noble friends and good friends provide us with necessary support, necessary conditions. We have to be very respectful for everyone. Our eyes are very aggressive eyes. We always want to see, oh, you do, oh, why do that, oh, why do that? How come that happened? No, we need to watch ourselves in the first place and being respectful to others. So today, we talked only about the very beginning of practice. When we see the suffering outside today, even though the actions of the aggressor is to be condemned, but we have to deeply in our heart admit that this is the part of human nature, and that nature is not in the dark souls of the soldiers somewhere over the ocean. The real darkness starts in our own hearts. So we have to work to clean it up in ourselves first, before trying to help others. or to tell others what to do, or even expect them to do better. First step is to understand something. Second step is to know what to rely on. We shortly can say that basically 3 treasures is 1 treasure. Buddha created Dhamma, Sangha supported Dhamma. So what we rely on is on Dhamma. And that can help us to stop the inner cycle of suffering. How? It is the easiest and the hardest part of the practice at the same time. In order to start coming nearer to the unconditioned, to the Nibbana, we have to run around in our mind less. Because the wheel of samsara is not an outside wheel. The suffering outside can't be stopped. They will come to me. But they can be stopped in inner level. And for that to happen, we need to develop a quiet mind, which we train by mindfulness. I remember one day, I saw a video that someone asked Thich Nhat Hanh, Venerable Thich Nhat Hanh, why do monks and nuns shave their head and wear their clothes? And his answer really, really surprised me. He answered to remember, to remind ourselves and others who we are. You would think that it's hard to forget that, you're a monk, you're a nun. But actually, our mind is not a very steady flow of consciousness. Instead, our mind rises and ceases a million times a day. And sometimes one mind is not connected to another one. So even though in one mind we can understand Dharma in principle, but the next mind that is arrived can be quite stupid and forgetful. So there is only one thing we should practice that can change everything. It sounds so simple, but yet almost no one actually practices. It is so easy. Just be mindful all the time. Just watch your breath when you're still, or if you're moving, watch the moment of contact, either your feet with the floor or your hands with an object. Just be mindful of the contact. Bring your brain connected to the feeling of touch. Don't get too much involved. How does it feel? Why does it feel? Just contact itself. No analyzing, no talking, no getting distracted or lost. Just being mindful. It's so easy. Why it's not working then? First of all, you have to understand you're not alone. It's really hard for everyone, even though it's easy. It's not easy to jump out of cycle of samsara because mindfulness is the only weapon we have to cut this cycle. And it's hard because of the past karma that makes us to run in the same cycles all the time. How to change it? If you feel that you're stuck, how to change it? How to improve? By giving, serving, helping, caring, being selfless, being humble. Don't try to be right. Just let go. Let go of your own wishes. Oh, you want me to help? Okay, right now I go help. Come to monastery and try. It is not easy. Today, we talked about how to meet difficult times from somewhat negative side, from suffering. But I have a second talk in less than a month about the same topic, and I promise that there's going to be a little different approach. Thank you, everyone.